Okay, so I wanted to, I guess, make this video because it's important and I think people need to hear this. And I don't know if Instagram TV or IGTV or whatever it's called, like removes videos after a certain amount of time, after like a few days or a week or whatever. But I wanted to include a video from um I wanted to include this video from there because it's important. Like, people need to hear it. Even though it's like an hour and 40 minutes long, it's still like people need to hear it. And so I know it's a very long video, but like, don't skip through it. It's important to hear. So yeah, I just don't skip through it. Yeah, I just wanted people to hear this. And I'll put the links to their Instagrams in the description below, and I'll put the original video in the description below, because, or if it's still up, then you can watch it there. Go, like, I guess you can share the original video too, if it's still up. I don't know if it'll be removed in a certain amount of time or what, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, so.
All right, wow. Here we are, technology. Okay, Angelica. Let's see what happens when I do this. Okay.
Hi, Cody.
Hi, Angelica.
You raise my video up so I don't.
Let me just. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Not really. Let me use my earphones and see what happens. But if I use my AirPods, see, I'm so terrible with technology.
You can use your AirPods.
Okay.
Mine are dead right now, so I'm not using them.
Okay, let me just do this. It's going to have to bear with me. I'm such a dad when it comes to technology.
No, you sound even better.
Okay, now I can hear you properly.
Awesome.
So here we are.
Here we are. And there's this brilliant black man by the name of Dr. Jamie Washington. He has his consulting group called the Washington Group, and they have done this Racial Justice Institute for several years. And he always starts off when he does his talks and his teaches, he always talks about giving context before content. So almost like before we even jump into the content of what we're talking about, like, what is the context? What is bringing us here today to even having this conversation? Why are you, Cody Fern, and I, Angelica Ross, like at this moment having this conversation on your large platform? What brings us here?
So I think the best way to go about that then is just, we had a great conversation about how this was going to go. And I think for everybody watching, what's going to happen is we're essentially going to have what we normally have as a private conversation in public. I reached out to Angelica over the weekend. Everything that's happening in America right now, particularly after the death of George Floyd, or the murder of George Floyd by police officers, and police officers, everybody in that particular murder is complicit. And that's something that needs to be understood, I believe, as well. It's not just the person who was kneeling on his neck. It's the people who were there who didn't pull the officer off his neck. It was the system that allowed them to get away with it, and where they still are not being brought in and are not being held accountable. And on top of that, of course, we had Donald Trump tweeting out when the looting starts, the shooting starts in relation to the protests, and just weeks before we had the death of Ahmaud Arbery, or the revelation of his slaying in the streets, which is essentially a lynching in 2020 by two white men, one of whom was working or used to work with the DA. So I was feeling particularly agitated, and I don't normally use my social media to be political. It's not something that I'm generally comfortable with. I have many political conversations in private, and it all boiled over, and I thought, this is not okay. This is no longer a platform which...
What a privilege to not use your platform to do that, when me as a Black trans woman, if I don't use my platform to signal all the deaths happening to Black trans women, there are a lot of people who won't. You
Right.
know, and so it's just about using your platform. So I definitely appreciate you. I was like, wait a minute, Cody's got like almost 1 million followers or something. I was like, we need to really talk to your following. We need to use this platform for a moment.
And I felt exactly the same, especially because in this conversation, I'm a person of privilege. I'm a person who has grown up in a culture that has constantly reaffirmed me, that has told me that I am beautiful, that I am enough, that I am the standard, and that anything that branches off from that is in somehow not the standard, not beautiful, not what is acceptable, not what is the norm. And to be silent in this moment is to be complicit. And that was something that I was really feeling. And anyway, I reached out to Angelica. I reached out to you because I felt, what can I actually do here? I was seeing everybody posting about Black Lives Matter and about George Floyd and about Ahmaud. And I felt, is this enough? Is this something that is actually helping, or is this mere virtue signaling? And that certainly kicked off a great conversation between you and I about what needs to be out there in the public and what needs to be said. And I felt it was best that it come from somebody within the community who actually understands the issues. And just for all of those who are tuning in and who will watch the video later, not from a position of, oh, please, Miss Angelica Ross, educate me in my whiteness about how to deal with the events that are going on. I'm feeling so bad, and I need you to comfort me in my complicity. How can I be better? Please educate me. Rather, let's take the conversation a little bit further. Let's see what the issues are really about and dig in, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, this is just such a great teaching platform. And like you were saying, I think there's some fundamental understandings that we have to have about what racism is. I think that, you know, something several folks have pointed out is that, you know, America has, especially America, but the world at large, just is ill-educated when it comes to the topic of racism and what it is. And that's why you have people thinking that reverse racism is a thing. That's why you have people who think that being racist is just burning crosses on front lawns and being a part of the KKK, and don't understand the very covert ways in which everyday people participate in white supremacy. I first off want to start off by saying, so that we can almost like set the tone for the space, is that we all have a shared enemy, and that shared enemy is white supremacy. It's not necessarily white people, but it is the system of white supremacy and racism. And we can all figure out what part we play in that. Now, I, as a leader in both the Black community, the trans community, and other communities, because I exist at multiple identities, that means I have multiple opportunities to question what role I play in white supremacy. But those conversations that I have, I want to make this very, very clear that there are conversations I'm having. When I say Black Lives Matter, there are conversations that I'm having within the Black community about Black Lives Matter, about the fact that there are Black trans women who are dying. And we don't rally around them the same way we rally around other deaths. And there are certain conversations I'm having to challenge and to push my people to live up to the ideal of Black Lives Matter. But this is the place where white commentary does not belong. And so when it comes to white people always wanting to chime in on the Black family and if fathers are in the house and what have you, their commentary would be better served at the system that keeps Black men out of the family, that keeps incarcerating Black men at a higher rate. So just as I'm spending time to go get my folks, this is an opportunity to equip yourself and to educate yourself to go gather your people. The library is open and we all should want to read and educate ourselves.
I mean, that was something that we had a wonderful conversation in London with Monroe.
Monroe Bergdorf, yes.
Another fantastic Black trans woman who has just the sharpest mind. And we were at a dinner and we were talking about issues of racial inequality and injustice. And I was really struggling because I could understand very clearly what it was that you were telling me and what Monroe was telling me. And I kept coming back to, but I just don't really understand, Angelica. We're having this conversation and it's so clear. It's so clear the injustices that are faced. It's so clear what the inequality is. How is it that I didn't understand parts of the nuance of this before? Or why is it that this conversation is so hard to have in public? What's the problem here? And I was really, it was like a 5-hour-long conversation and I was really trying to go through it until there was this aha moment of, well, wait a minute. Am I the problem? Is it me and my, and rather than seeing it for the first time as an attack on who I am as a white person, as if my white identity is something that is sacred and any questioning of my white identity is somehow not okay or shameful, that rather there was a moment of, I suppose, the conscious unveiling of unconscious racial biases. And it was a moment where I, for the first time, came to understand that when we say racism, when we say somebody is a white supremacist or that we live under a system of white supremacy, the average person, I think, and me included at that point in time, thinks, well, a white supremacist is someone with a tiki torch who is in, you know, Charlottesville. That's a white supremacist who's wearing a neo-Nazi symbol. We can point at them. And what we loathe to do is look within ourselves and say, well, how am I upholding a system by which white is the standard, by which white is the norm, by which your experience as a person of color is not making it into the mainstream conversation. And every time a white person is challenged, we think, well, but I'm not racist. I myself personally am not racist. I had a Black teacher. She was the greatest Black teacher I've ever had. In fact, I have Black people who live on my street and we talk all the time. We talk on the street. It's great. I have Black friends. I can't be racist. And it was the aha moment of, wait a minute, you have to accept fundamentally that you are racist, that you grew up in a society in which there is a bias. And of course, you will have absorbed that bias. It is not, it is inevitable that you will absorb racial bias. And the role, I believe, for us now as white people is to look at those unconscious racial biases and really start to pull them apart and analyze them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to point your followers to, you know, and they'll look back at this when they, you know, watch back as well. I'm actually going to type into the chat here, good co. And that is a Instagram account called Good Co, and it's basically like a media outlet that's trying to just help educate and what have you. And they posted something that's kind of got a couple different slides, and it basically says like how to be actively anti-racist, because we realize that it's not enough to just say, I'm not racist, so we're good. You have to actually, so I'm going to ask you guys a question, all in the chat here. I see you all are chatting up here. So I'm going to ask you just a basic question. How often do you think that Black people encounter racism or anti-Blackness? How often do you think that Black people experience racism or anti-Blackness? So I will, sorry, a phone call was coming in. I will answer every day. Yes, every day, 8 times a day. That's about more accurate. 8 times a day. Every moment. That's probably even closer. So think about these fundamental things. Just being a human being. We know just being human and growing from an adolescent into an adult, that's enough of a journey. That's enough of challenge of finding your identity, finding your strengths and weaknesses, learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you. That's enough of a challenge. We all have to go through that as human beings. Imagine now having a whole extra job on top of that. A job. One that requires and takes your energy and focus every day. Finding out, being called the N-word, being denied, being redlined, being profiled, being underestimated, being locked out. There's so many ways that we experience that every day. But yet, it is the privilege of non-Black people and the privilege of white people every day to turn it off. Every day to not have to engage. Every day to not need to talk about race, every day to not use your platforms. If you really are committed to creating an environment of anti-racism, if you're committed to being anti-racist, understanding, if I don't do anything as a white person, I'm complicit, number one. At the basis, if I just do nothing at all, if I don't even harm any people of color, if I don't say anything bad about people of color, at the very least, I'm guilty because I'm complicit. Because my white skin has power wherever I bring it. And learning just in the protest, when you see the protest, you see white people, some white people have learned to use their bodies to protect other Black bodies. Because it's miraculous how these police don't want to touch the white people. They want to accost the Black people. And so when you understand these things at a fundamental rate, that, listen, I have the privilege to check out. So if I'm really saying that I'm committed to bringing about a world of peace and a world that's not racist, then am I really going to sit back and let all the Black people do the work? Am I going to really sit back and let all the people of color educate everybody while I sit back? This is about every day. Every day, I want you to ask yourself, what can I do today? Whether that is donating to organizations that are doing the work, whether that is using your platform to have a conversation, whether that is hiring Black people in your organization, whether that is, there's so many ways, and whether that's having conversations at your dinner table.
Well, I think, Angelica, one of the ways that we have discussed, certainly, and I suppose it came from, when we first met on American Horror Story, there was a particular event happening at the time, and it's really when we first became friends, and I approached you and we'd been talking, but I was very confused, and it was an event that included a racial injustice, and I said, I just don't understand here what's really going on, and I want to become clear about it, because this is my bias in it, and I don't understand the other side of the picture. And we just had a conversation. And one of the things that I learned from that conversation, and then we had many more conversations, and I think it's where a part of the problem comes in for us white people, is that risk being uncomfortable or being called out on being quote unquote racist. And when people hear that they're being racist, the first thing they think is that they are being consciously mean, that they have conscious malintent directed towards a person of color. And I think what's important to note is that you also have to look at your unconscious bias, and that when your racism is checked, and we were able to have these conversations because we became friends, that you have to actually sit in the discomfort of the moment. And rather than becoming just purely ashamed and guilty and now I'm going to avoid you because I don't want this event to happen again. And so now I'm punishing you for calling me out on my racial bias. And now I can talk to my friends about this, and now I can, et cetera, et cetera. Actually sitting in the discomfort and saying, where is it that I'm going wrong here? What is it that I'm saying that is either offensive or is hurting you or is using oppressive language? And I think one of the things that really helped me with this was a quote about, it's from Robin DiAngelo, which is that prejudice is your thoughts, feelings, attitudes, biases, and how you perceive either consciously or unconsciously. So it's what's in your head. And discrimination is when you act on those prejudices. Now, everybody, I came to understand, because, you know, we have the Black Lives Matter movement. And one of the things that I think frustrates me the most is this whole counter all lives matter movement, that it's, well, all lives matter. And I've been really trying to wrap my head around why it is that we need to say all lives matter, as if saying Black Lives Matter means that other people's lives don't matter. And this is what I found. So when you back a group's collective prejudice with legal authority and institutional control, it is transformed into a far-reaching system that becomes the default of the society, which is what systemic racism is. So on the topic of reverse racism, on the topic of, to say Black Lives Matter is reverse racism because it says that all lives don't matter. So we need to start saying all lives matter. How do you feel?
Well, again, I mean, we don't need any mantras to look around and know that white lives matter. We can see that when Dylan Roof, I think was his name or what have you, was the white guy who killed 9 people in a church, walked out as if he was, you know, being escorted, as if he was some VIP person. Meanwhile, Black people who are being accused of check fraud don't make it out alive. You know, so we really don't need any mantras, or we don't need any more anything to let us know that white lives matter. There's a whole system built on that. There's a whole Hollywood narrative built on that. There is an understanding that people who are from marginalized places understand the system so much that they're trying so hard to give their kids a blueprint to make it through a white supremacist society that says, if you just don't do this and you know, get an education and you do these things that are really in alignment with, because even education, the U.S. education system is white centered. It actually doesn't tell history in a way that actually tells white people really that it's not that you're better than anyone else. It's that you got such a 400-year head start at Black people building this country on our backs, and with our blood is in this in the soil. And so there are just so many. It's like this. It's like going to a funeral, and it's a funeral for, we're at Aretha Franklin's funeral. Mm-hmm. And folks are like, but what about Whitney Houston? Are we going to talk about Whitney Houston? Or what about Pavarotti? Pavarotti died, whoever else. It's like, but we're at a... So it's kind of this thing of understanding that just because we are acknowledging this thing right now does not mean, people can't chew gum and walk at the same time. I can call out transphobia, homophobia, and anti-Blackness all at the same time. So it's just up to other people to be able to speak intersectionally. And the problem is that we have white leaders. We've had too many white leaders who have not been able to speak to the majority and to speak into a place that says, Of course, all lives matter, but right now we're talking about Black lives because this country has been systematically oppressing and killing Black bodies. So that's what we're talking about right now.
And I think right now, what's interesting about this, and it certainly impacted me, is when you see the videos of what happened to Ahmaud, and when you see the video of what happened to George Floyd, when you hear about Breonna Taylor, is that fundamentally, I'm sure that there will be people who are listening or watching that watch this talk later that feel very uncomfortable that we're talking about whiteness, that we're talking about blackness, that we're talking about how you can be complicit as a white person. It's confronting, well, that slavery happened 400 years ago. I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't own slaves. I didn't bring slaves to this country. What role do I have to play in that? And I think more and more when you're seeing, and it's certainly the thing that hit me, that you have to be blind now in today's world to not see how the prejudice is playing out.
And the reality is that's an insult to blind people.
Right.
The reality is that even a blind person could see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because because you have to be it's about being a human, having your humanity active in a way that's not just about protecting your own privilege and protecting your own thing and feeling like, well, this doesn't have anything to do with me and that doesn't have anything to do with me. But guess what? COVID-19, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a military force, whether it is cancer, whether it's HIV, whether it's police brutality, the thing is, we can't be so egotistical to think that, well, not me, that shouldn't happen to me. And that's why when the fire gets close to your door, you have to understand this is not about the protesters. This is not about the looters. That's just a symptom of the situation. That's just something. So trying to address that is nowhere near addressing the problem.
Well, and of course, addressing the looters right now, this is something that we were talking about. You know, I was at the protests yesterday and the day before. And of course, what the mainstream media is focusing on and what the news is focusing on really is an endless loop of the looters. It's like, look at these people, they're going in, they're looting, and let's talk about looting for a moment. But what I want to say is important in that conversation is that I was at the protest. It was incredibly peaceful. We were marching in the streets of Los Angeles. There was absolutely no need for a police presence. There was rage and there was sadness and there was passion. There was no need for police. The police showed up with a riot squad. They showed up in full gear with tear gas and rubber bullets, just waiting for that moment, it seemed, to use their new toys. And it was the moment where the peaceful protest tipped, where they started to divide the protests so that the protesters could not join up. They didn't want there to be a big crowd in case people started looting. And of course, what the news shows you is the looting that's happening at, 8 p.m. onwards after they've set a curfew. What they don't show you is the police brutality that happens at 3 p.m. To a line of unarmed women in the front line protecting Black bodies, and how it then broke out. And then they say, but look, this police cruiser is on fire, and it's like, listen, people are dropping in the streets. What are we talking about a car for? And that's not put on the news. Of course it's not put on the news. Or yesterday at the Black Lives Matter protest, when looters who were not a part of the protest rocked up in their cars to loot the Nike store, and the protesters, all of us, started chanting, "Don't loot," and protected the Nike store so that the march could move on safely. But of course, the police used that as an excuse to start firing tear gas at the protesters.
Because they're not, look, there's this video out there of, I'm breaking this all the way down. There's this video out there of Amanda Seales talking to table of people, mostly white people. I think Katy Perry was at the table. Also, Caitlyn Jenner was at the table. And Caitlyn Jenner was talking about the way that she believes in America and, you know, and our believes in our system and blah, blah, blah. And Amanda Seals points out, but that's because you can say that, sis, in a way that I cannot. She says that, you know, America has been here for you in a way that it has not been here for me. And that understanding there's a system to undermine, literally to undermine the rebellion, undermine Black unity, to undermine unity amongst the people, all these things. So there's a system that is working to undermine, which means they'll go stop at nothing. There are undercover cops who are the ones who are in the crowds. Mm-hmm. And it's a plan that they've created together from the outside in. So y'all go ahead and hit the streets. We're going to do this thing. And once it gets to this level, then we can bring out our tanks, because that, you know, in our policies or whatever, once this happens, then this signals we can start using tear gas, or we can start using these things. And so there are people who are not Black people who are coming in and causing way more destruction than what we're bringing there. We're coming there and we're talking about our pain, and other people are there because they're bored. Other white privileged folks are there because they're bored, because they want to feel something. And some of them are there because they're actually aligned with the KKK. They're actually aligned with what do they call them? Anarchists and all these different organizations. And then there's the police forces actually there. So there's a lot of, there's a plan that's happening across the city. And now you're seeing city by city, Black people holding their cameras up and filming the white people looting. The white people are looting, taking surfboards out of Pagoda or whatever that Patagonia or whatever that damn store is, taking surfboards. They're spray painting walls, and the police are, there's just a video of a white woman spray painting the windows of a thing, and the police are standing right there. Like standing there. And I think at one point they say something to her, and it sounds like they're giving her a suggestion of what to spray paint on the wall.
Well, that happened yesterday at the protest. I mean, one of the things that we saw was, and it's on my Instagram story actually, is an unmarked white police cruiser left out right in front of a line of the National Guard, which was 2 blocks away and had mobilized. And the protest had been filtered down this particular street. And so, of course, on the side of this car is free car, please use. And there were a line of Black men that were saying, do not touch this car. This is a plant. This is clearly a plant. Can you not see how they're turning us into animals? They're leaving out toys for us to play with. Like, and they formed a line around the car to say, don't burn this. And of course, you have the National Guard mobilizing and you have the police force mobilizing. So the protest moved on. They just wanted that car to burn. It's so clearly inciting the violence. It's like, as soon as the violence begins, we can move in with our tear gas. The news camera can grab their images of the crowd dispersing, and we can all go back to normal. It's just, I mean, it's bizarre, because if I was not on the other side of it, I used to be one of those people who said, well, that's a conspiracy theory. We can't talk about those sorts of things. That's a conspiracy theory. And yet here we are, and it's happening.
Well, here's the conspiracy
happening on
theory.
The streets.
Here's the conspiracy theory that I would love for all your followers to understand, is that when I say fuck the police, I mean that shit. And when I say that, what I mean when I say that, because some people are like, oh, well, you know, my cousin or so-and-so, you know, they're a police officer and they're a great person and, you know, what have you. Like, listen, great on them. Encourage them to find a new career. And the reason why I say that is because the police force, please understand history and to know that the police force was only created once the slaves were freed, and they needed to protect white people and white property. For the longest time, white people have not been scared of us getting freedom. They've been scared of us wanting revenge on 400 years of all this stuff. So you got these thin-skinned racist folks behind the badge. and they've always been behind the badge. And you've had the KKK behind the badge. So when you got some young black boy dreaming about one day becoming a cop and getting into the system and changing the system, we have got to educate our people more to understand what a system is, so that you understand. I understand it sounds nice that you want to get in there and do different and change things, but this is a system, sweetie. It was made before you were here, and it will continue to go on well after you are gone. So as much as you want to be in the police force and do these things, you can see how many of these good cops are calling out the bad ones. How many of them are actually speaking up?
They also had in West Hollywood, of course, the entire front line of police officers were black. So the police force had coordinated, put the black police officers in front because they'll be able to talk everybody down, and we'll have all of the white police officers behind the black police officers so that if something goes down, we can join in. And it's, you know, you look at it and you think, how can people not see this? How can they not see that even within the police force, they're using the black members, they're using them. It's like, well, they'll be able to dismantle this situation. They're black, they'll talk to the black people and everything will calm down. And if it doesn't, then we've got a line of people in front of us to help so that we won't get as hurt, you know?
And unfortunately, there's so many people of color who don't understand how they, again, become agents of white supremacy. And I want to highlight this again because just as we dive down deep into what white people's responsibility is on this, this is your problem. Racism is a problem that white people have to figure out. But the unfortunate part is that anybody who isn't white, we have these very odd side effects of anti-blackness and racism. Because what happens is that so many of people are so afraid and so focused on just trying to get by and survive and what have you, that they're trying to do whatever white people are saying you should do in order to be a good black person or to be a good this. If you would just pull up your pants, if you would just talk like this, if you would just get an education, if you would just do these things. And that's why it's very important when people point out that I can't play video games with my nephew in my house without have police busting my door and killing me. I can't be at a Walmart playing with a Nerf gun without being killed. I can't be outside. There's so many things. I can't be bird watching without a white woman using white tears as a weapon to call upon the force that she knows will come running. Why do you think this white woman, Amy Cooper, picked up the phone and is screaming over the phone, oh my God, he's doing this? Or when the white guy who pulled out a bow and arrow on protesters then is later crying white tears about what happened to him and forgetting the fact that you actually started pulling out a bow and arrow on folks. White tears have become a weapon, and they're using them against black people of all ages, against little black girls who are selling lemonade stand, who are at a lemonade stand. White kids all day down Wisteria Lane are able to put up a cute, it's almost like I forget the name of the artist that does those old paintings of the 50s of people doing, all the white things that white people do. But it's like we are not able to access and do those things without someone really trying to tell us, are you sure? When one of the congressmen or someone was trying to enter their home, and they're entering their own home and being accosted because they're entering their own home, people don't believe that they belong there. I wanted to point out that, like you said, people are thinking lynching, hate crimes, and saying the N-word, burning crosses, doing all that stuff is like, that's what being a racist is. And again, pointing to that, like how to be an anti-racist at good, code. It talks about overt white supremacy, which basically socially, we all feel like it's socially unacceptable. Don't do that. Mm-hmm. To the things that somehow people get away with all day. Saying they're colorblind. White silence. Calling the police on black people. This is all about, this all contributes to white supremacy. White savior complex. Hollywood loves that one, creating narratives where white people are saving the day. That's why you see that the only really black movies that usually win awards are ones where we're slaves or that they have a white savior in it.
So
Green Book. Yeah.
let's talk about that exact point, because it's something that we discussed when I called, and I said, you know, a thing that I'm having a lot of difficulty with here is everybody's posting all of these memes, and I care, which, you know, in a lot of instances I find very uncomfortable, because you see these people sitting back in the back of the lines, and to me it has always seemed like this is the very bare minimum that you can possibly do, is say, you know what, I'm mad about the death of George Floyd. And
Bare minimum.
so for me, it was very difficult, because when I reached out to you, I said, I just don't know actually what to do here. There's so many social justice warriors saying this or that or the other, and it becomes kind of this internet jerk where it's like, I'm going to pat myself on the back because I posted about George Floyd and I joined in and I said, I condemn this. And then I went back to eating my cereal and watching Netflix. And how do you feel about the virtue signaling that's going on, and what the next step is?
There's a lot of virtue signaling going on. People are trying to do it's at a point where people are calling out people for not using their platforms and doing certain things, and so people are now doing the least, like you just said, the bare minimum at saying, yes, I'm upset about this too. I'm going to so I'll use this as an example. It's one thing to post, we are with you, we understand that Black Lives Matter and we stand with you and blah, 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 what have you. But that's a post. That's not your actual feet standing with me. That is not your actual. And so what that looks like is, so say for instance, this post. So folks can put, like, I've seen all kind of black. They put a black background, you know, and then there's some white text and, you know, somebody's making their statement. And that's all great. But that statement is not as powerful as something like this post. This is an Instagram post, as this graphic that clearly shows the small above line, socially unacceptable, overt racist behavior. And then you see all of this, you see all of these extra things. It's like so many different things under covert. And these are all of the things that white people don't know. Like, they really honestly are just now learning. So to mess up your beautiful feed, mess up the you know how we have our Instagram feeds and it's all lined up with all our stuff or whatever, break that shit up. You understand what I'm saying? And put the real information in there. Like, not just I'm with you and I feel whatever. In the words of Martin Luther King, who y'all shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not do that. Let's actually put real information that people can actually do something with. This post that I'm referring to has several slides, and what they're pointing to is not only organizations that you can donate to, but they're also pointing to films on Netflix, like 13th with Ava DuVernay. If you have not seen 13th by Ava DuVernay, Angelica Ross is asking for you to do that one bit of homework. If you don't do one thing else, I'm asking you to watch 13th. This is broken down, and you will find out how America's system works. Prisons are privatized. That means that there's capital gain. It's a business. When you have a business around prisons, every business has something called supply and demand, and a supply and demand chain. Police are a part of the supply and demand chain. There are incentives for feeding the supply and demand chain. These are human beings. These are Black people's lives, and there are incentives on this kind of policing. We have got to understand how this has been used specifically to Black people. And once you realize that, you can realize that it doesn't always have to feel like work. You can watch a documentary. You can listen to a podcast. You can donate. You can share information. But what you please best make sure you do is something. Every day, do something. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to do something. Know in your heart, feel good about yourself that today I've done something to combat racism.
So, okay, let's talk about looting for a moment, because the response to a lot of these, so two things. What needs to be done right now in response, what the specific demands are, is a question that comes up a lot. And the second one is, oh, but the looters. And you said something really phenomenal about looting earlier. So, of course, I think, first of all, it's to be noted that the looters, especially a lot of the people who roll up in the cars, do not represent the movement. It's not the voice of the movement. But I was really struggling to understand, well, what is the value of looting, or what is the, and it's not that I'm condoning looting, but I wanted to understand more, especially so of course we have a whole bunch of white people coming and looting and adding to the problem, but then what the news shows is the people who are black who are looting. And then people say, well, this is what it was always going to be. It was just an excuse for all of these black people to loot these stores. And it's heartbreaking, you watch and you say, oh, this poor business, this poor local business, and well, what's the value of all of this protesting if it's just going to eventuate in looting? And so what are your thoughts on what's happening with the looting?
I would say that anyone who is concerned about the looting and concerned about, all of that, I would say, first of all, let's be very grateful that these are businesses and not your homes. And let's be grateful for that, because I know you've been hearing people talking about eating the rich. And so the situation that we're dealing with right now is folks are so much more concerned with folks looting these stores than the looting that just happened a couple of weeks ago when big businesses just looted $500 billion that was supposed to go to small American businesses that are struggling. The American people that are struggling, it was a heist that happened, and we saw it right in front of our eyes. And they do this every time when they look out for their interest. $500 billion, and this is not the first time. And so, and this is government, but then there's also Wall Street and and the ways that white supremacy has been looting America. The fact that from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street was burned down by white America, by white supremacy. There is a debt that is owed. And so when you see people looting and taking things, it literally is about the fact that, what the fuck do you think no justice, no peace means? When we continuously are complicit or overtly participating in a system that makes it so that we have this ruling class of white people that are no better than anyone else, it's just a system that continuously rewards and gives to and makes this imbalance. And so when people are taking and burning down and trying to grasp back, how can you criticize people burning down something they built and were not paid to build? And I'm talking about this country. I'm not speaking about any specific property. And
then, of course, the systemic oppression of the Black community in America. So a lot of people I notice are saying, oh, well, they're stealing from other businesses and this and that and the other. And I can understand all of those arguments. But the thing that I always come back to is, who do we think that COVID has disproportionately affected? Who's not able to get access to the money, the $500 billion? Yay, we get to give all this money to small businesses, but how are we getting this to the Black community in America? We're not. So you have a system of, and then when you were talking about incarceration, and please do watch 13th, it's about the fact that you then have a system of people who are unable to get employment, where a system in which even if they could get employment, with prison records, you then have the systemic racism that kicks in and says, I'm not so sure I'm comfortable hiring this black man. So that when, of course, when things like this happen, that there's an opportunity there. And the opportunity is also a cry of rage. It cannot just be viewed as, well, people are coming in and stealing from local businesses. It needs to be seen also as a cry of rage. And I really understand what you mean when you say, because you said it to me the other day, right before all this broke out, you said, you know, this is going to get hairy, Cody. And because what do people think by no justice, no peace? And I thought, oh, what do people think by no justice, no peace? And then when it happens, you think, oh, no justice, no peace. The officers still have not been arrested, you know?
And here we go. And here we go about the amount of energy that went into arresting all those protesters, and yet they couldn't still arrest 3 of their own. Mm-hmm. The fact that you opened up this conversation, and when we first talked about this fact of this cop who we've been trying to arrest, who had his knee on this man's neck, and the fact that we are just now getting to the conversation about changing the camera view so we can see it was 2 cops right next to him and another one standing watch. So they all need to go. And so this, and that is what white supremacy is. It is you being able to do whatever you want to do because there's a system looking out for you. I can't tell you enough how many times I've been in situations and seen police growing up in the Midwest, seeing police, you know, young kids dealing with young kids partying or doing whatever, and they will easily escort a white kid home, but escort a black kid in handcuffs to the precinct. There have been times when we've seen white kids get off on court because they feel like, I mean, I can't even remember the girl's damn name. I just remember she did something terrible. And the judge just felt like this whole arena was like too harsh for her as a white girl. Like we are valuing, like Cody.
Well, the girl who the one who you know had her boyfriend commit suicide by sending him text messages gets a documentary, 2 documentaries about her. How this poor white woman has, you know, had to face an unjust system because she pushed her boyfriend to commit suicide, and we need to look at her the mental conditions surrounding it. Here's 2 documentaries. Here's millions of dollars of funding. Can we please have our Emmy now? And it's like, well, okay. Speaking
of Emmy and speaking of creative forces and energies or whatever, let me talk to some of y'all white people at these protests and doing stuff like this or whatever. Listen, if you're not out here doing this kind of work, if you're not out here, you know, doing these kind of movements, I don't want to see your fucking art projects. I don't want to see your films. I don't want to see any of this stuff because my pain is not your art project. Okay, so a lot of y'all are going out here shooting this beautiful footage. Just like think about this too. Think about Tangerine. If some of you, I don't know if you've seen the movie Tangerine. Great film. The reality of that situation is that there was so much oppression going on in just the making of that film.
Huh.
And the fact that when that film received all the awards, who was on stage collecting the awards but white men and white people? Telling a story of marginalized people, our pain is your reward. That is what needs to stop. Our pain is your reward. And making you feel good. The only ways you want to hear about our pain is when it is put into a narrative that makes you feel good.
Well, that comes back to the virtue signaling, right? Which is that right now it's an amazing opportunity for a lot of people to, I mean, I noticed this, you know, and it's not to call anybody in particular out. I understand that there are concerns over COVID-19, but, you know, there's a lot of celebrities right now posting Black Lives Matter, and I didn't see, you know, 98% of them on the streets yesterday or the day before or the day before. It's like, you know, there are certainly people who are turning out, and then there are people who are, and I understand, you know, of course there are concerns about COVID, and there are certain people who can't come out because of health conditions. But I think that we have to be very careful right now of watching celebrity culture.
Well, think about how many white people came out to protest the closing of America. like literally risking their lives. Some of them have masks, whatever, but they're coming out in masses. The reality is that's, I mean, I guess not them because we know they MO, but like that's what it's, I mean, yeah, sure, black people were upset and blah, blah, blah. Why aren't y'all upset? That's why they're going to the hills, because not enough of y'all are upset and in the streets. Not enough of y'all are calling out your own people. So now we got to do it. And you can't now criticize us about how we doing it because you're not.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
and to make that very clear as well, it was just a few weeks ago that those white protesters stormed the Capitol with AK-47s to protest local businesses being closed during COVID-19, and not a single person was arrested. And the reports keep rolling in here in Los Angeles and around the country. We've had the fucking National Guard mobilized. We had military forces in the street to make sure that nobody is going to air their voices around this. It's like you cannot peacefully protest about Black Lives Matter and about what's happened with George Floyd. You are not allowed to do that unarmed in the streets peacefully. But please, if you're white, grab a gun, come to the Capitol. We want to hear about your local nail salon closing.
But what also happens when we do peacefully protest, when we take a knee?
Colin Kaepernick.
We can't, there is no method that white people want to hear from us about this. We can't kneel. We can't do all these things. And that's why I always have to be very mindful of and it's just because it's the way that it is. I know I'm new to Hollywood. I'm very new to Hollywood. I've been acting for a very long time, but because of my marginalization, because of being Black, because of being trans, it took me a lot longer to get here than it could have. And with Hollywood, period, it's a journey, but there's this threshold of talent. There's this bubbling of things or whatever that folks have. And when you have these multiple layers of sort of marginalization and oppression, it makes it that much harder to get in. Now that I am here, this is new, but now that I'm here, I'm speaking out. And I have way more, I could be wiped out way quicker than any other seasoned celebrity who thinks that they have something to protect, who doesn't want to speak up because they want to protect their platforms. What I'm showing folks by engaging my celebrity is that the reality is, my power was not given to me by this. Mm-hmm. Me becoming an actor, this only increased or put a spotlight on the powerful woman that I am. But my platform cannot be taken away from me as a Black trans woman. So therefore, you can take what you want to take. You could try to take my livelihood. You can try to take my money. You could try to take certain things. But I'm of a certain fabric of people, of Black people, of resilient people that, they say when you thought you was burying us and forgot and didn't realize we were seeds,
that's good.
I am not afraid of losing it all because I once had nothing. I was on the streets as a Black trans woman faced with the only option of doing sex work because every job I applied for, once I showed my ID that said male on it, I was then either fired or I was harassed until I quit. And this is what we live right now in a society that's trying to make life so uncomfortable for people that we give up. They want to make it so that trans people can't exist in public spaces, public accommodations, bathrooms and schools and locker rooms and sports. They're trying to keep us out of all these places so that we do not exist. It is the same thing for Black people. There's like a list now of things that we know that we can do and still get shot that have nothing to do with criminal activity. So, white people, I don't even care if you're homeless. Let me just tell you this, speaking of homeless, poor white people, racism and white supremacy is using you as a tool because you're white and it's wanting you to make you feel better than other people that are in the same predicament that you are, and have you vote for policies that are no good for you too. But because white supremacy is using you as a tool, they'll get you to participate in something as well that is not benefiting you.
Well, this is, and this just harkens back to that point about reverse racism. And let's just, I'm going to ask you a couple more things, but with reverse racism, one of the things that I just want to talk about is that it does not exist. It was something that I believed existed. You know, I used to say, oh, that's just being reverse racist. And I just want to make that point clear, which is that everybody has bias. Everybody of every skin color has bias. That's one thing. But when your bias is backed by, or your prejudice is backed by legal authority and institutional control, it becomes a far-reaching system. And that is what systemic racism is. And the systemic racism that is functioning in this country and around the world right now, and which is the most prevailing social issue that we're facing in America, is white supremacy. It is the inbuilt racism. It's the racism that allowed everybody to breathe a sigh of relief when Barack Obama became president and say, well, we're good people. We won. The fight for racism is over. And then years later to have the actual response to that moment be Donald Trump, who did not condemn the white supremacists in Charlottesville, who had just written, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And then a racial epithet that most people know of, and of course goes back and says, well, no, it wasn't a racial, I wasn't saying it racially, I was saying it's just it's a matter of fact. When people start looting, we're going to start shooting. It's got nothing to do with, you know, that the reverse racism, the how can we be talking about whiteness? How can black people talk to white people about whiteness? Isn't that being racist? How are all cops are, you know, all cops are bad, etc., etc. This reverse racism is not a thing. Even if it was a thing, it's not backed by the same system that would allow anybody to have any form of control.
But also, you want to talk about looting? Let's talk about the museums.
Let's talk about the Met.
Let's talk about the museums that are still holding on to stolen property and want to somehow sell it back to. You know, let's talk about the fact that all of these buildings that are burning down are on stolen land to begin with. You understand what I'm saying? So the fact that we don't want to, and that is where, like, you have a lot of white people who are stockpiling weapons right now because they are afraid that the reckoning is coming. And the reality is, it is. But the reality is, you don't have to be afraid of black people if you clearly identify yourself on the side, on the right side. Is if you get on our side. It is if you are amongst us, not creating the chaos, but using your white skin. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to tell you, no, I'm not. If you are homeless and you're a white person who is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't got nothing. I don't even know what you can't even talk to me about white privilege. I don't have white privilege. Mm-hmm. And the reality is tell me about your experience as a white homeless person. And then let's go talk to the black homeless people. Still saying, let's stay on your level there. Let's talk on that level of homelessness. Now let's add race into the combination. Because the reality is, even in the gay community, folks understand this. So many people are pushed out of their homes due to LGBTQ stuff, right? But when you're gay and white on the street, there is some older white man that is going to wrap his arm around you. And whether it's from sex work or turning you to an interior designer or a part-time real estate agent, whatever it is that within the gay community, that white skin on the street, I've seen it walking in Culver City. Look, white people looking at white folks, you don't belong there on the street, or that's somebody's whiteness is looking out for y'all many, many times. Now I know other people can be there's assholes of all whatever. But when it comes to black trans women who are on the streets. No one's wrapping their arms around them, turning them into real estate agents, giving them careers in the nonprofits and doing all these things. We've had to fight and claw for every single thing that we've gotten. I used to work for a nonprofit that had a white CEO who hired a white, buff, gay male in our, in our organization, who was also part-time on a porn website, doing what have you, which me, Angelica Ross, is all for, because I'm all about sexual liberation and I'm all about those things. But in that same token, we are serving Black trans women who are in a pipeline of coming out of jail because they've been arrested for sex work. We're not protecting people who are doing sex work, and yet we're protecting the elitism of rentboy.com and all these other things that allow there to be like a different experience because of your race when it comes to sex work.
There's that billboard up on Sunset, sugardaddy.com, with this, white woman laid out, and it's basically, you come on our website and you whore yourself out, and then and we'll support it. But if you're a Black trans woman on the streets, honey, you're going to jail.
Yeah, and not just
you don't get a billboard.
Yeah, not just that, but I mean, again, in this industry, in everything that we do, there's a book called An Energy of Anatomy by Carolyn Miss. And she talks about different archetypes that we, that are just existing in most people. The child archetype, all these different archetypes. But there's also like the victim archetype. There's also the prostitute archetype. And the prostitute archetype is all about, no matter who you are, realizing that everyone has a price at which they're willing to sell their creative energy. They're willing to sell their allegiance. They're people who are working for companies they know are evil, but they pay the right salary. People who are in marriages that they know they don't want to be in, but it pays the right price. There's a certain level of which we're willing to sell ourselves in order to sell ourselves, most times to sell ourselves short. So there are many times in this conversation of prostitution that we're not really having it, because we're only talking about people who we, again, respectability politics wise, we hate those people that are selling their bodies and whatever. Meanwhile, you're selling your morals, you're selling your soul, you're prostituting out your soul. And I think that's way worse than prostituting out your body, because you're not lying to yourself every day about what the exchange is. Many prostitutes who are selling their body are very clear this is not love, are very clear about what the exchange is. But people who prostitute themselves out in different ways lie to themselves to keep them going, to keep them feeling good about the price that they've been paid to do that work.
Okay, so I'm going to have to think about that one for a long time, Angelica. That one's really...
Energy of Anatomy by Carolyn Miss. It's literally where we are right now, because...
Let me write that one down real quickly. What was that one called?
Energy of Anatomy by Carolyn, Carolyn, and Miss is spelled like Myss. It's like, she also wrote a book called Sacred Contracts.
Oh, yes, I know this book.
Yes. So, again, just learning about that fact, then you understand that she also gets to dive into something called sacred prostitution, which is where you aren't lying to yourself and you understand that you're giving yourself of your energy in a certain way, and exchanging it in that way for a purpose. So again, I can't break all that down or whatever, but that's clear in a book. But we basically have got to start owning our privilege and understanding that doesn't negate your entire story. The fact that you have white privilege does not mean that you have not worked hard for the things in your life. It does mean that it has made your life easier in the same ways that it means that me being sickening and pretty has made my life easier. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, me being able to be attractive and be able to speak I own my pretty privilege. I own my cis-assuming privilege, because being a Black trans woman, I can't just be out here being like, I'm a Black trans woman and I got it worse and it's the hardest thing. Meanwhile, I'm living way better of a life than many other Black trans women because of the certain privileges that I am coming with. But acknowledging those privileges does not negate the fact that I too had to deal with sex work. I too have been called the N-word. I too have to deal with transphobia in my own community. But I can go to the corner liquor store, or I can go to the gas station and walk past a gauntlet of black men and not be called a man because I have cis-assuming privilege. That is the difference. I'm able to own that.
I think that's a really poignant point, and it comes down to, it's one of the responses, I think, in most white people that, well, but I've struggled. I've truly struggled, and you know, I've in particular had a quite a difficult life, and
Absolutely.
but that does not, you know, the thing when we're talking about race is that evidence of your own personal struggle does not negate the problem. It doesn't say, well, I've struggled as well, and so therefore this problem of systemic racism doesn't exist. You know, and I think, you know, it comes back to what we were talking about before, with every time that you're called out for racism or that you encounter the fact that you are unveiling an unconscious bias, that it is incumbent upon you to sit in that discomfort and to analyze it and to work on it, to actually do something about it, because pointing at evidence of how you're not racist, pointing at your black friends or black teachers or people that you've known and saying, well, I'm actually, or the classic one I think is, well, you should hear what my parents say or what their grandparents say, or it's like saying that somebody else is more racist than I am does not change the fact that you are racist. And so I want to ask you something, and I'm just conscious of your time, Angelica. I want to just two things, I think, firstly, which is something that's not clear to me is not clear to a lot of people, I think, is cultural appropriation. It's something that's coming up a lot, and it's, you can't do that, you can't wear that, you can't have your hair in dreadlocks, you can't, and then well, I don't understand. You know, how am I culturally appropriating? And I think that the classic response from white people is, well, does that mean that black people can't do white people things? Like, why do they get to do this, but I don't get to have dreadlocks? So can we talk a little bit about that?
I mean, fundamentally speaking, we're living in a world dominated by white culture and white supremacy. So the reality is that we were beat into submission. We were beat into the white way. So, and punished every time we stray away from that. So when you're just talking about schools and kids going to schools, that we have to conform our appearance to make y'all comfortable. And to make you know, and to make it seem like our hair seems like it's unkept, or it communicates a certain thing to you because you don't understand it, and don't understand it so much that people appropriate styles that they have no idea why we're even doing what we're doing. And so that's why it looks silly on some people, is because there are certain styles that we do, or certain things that we do, that are not just about it's not about the look. It's about the fact that I was told that because my hair was not straight, because I didn't conform to a certain look, that there's this, that I didn't have good hair, that I didn't and growing up dark skinned with curly hair, you know, with, I'll say curly hair, because that's what we say now. But for the longest time, we called it nappy hair, or we call, you know, and then that was a slur, nappy heads, and you know, all these different things. When what happens over time, when we learn to braid our hair, when we wear certain things, those are called protective stylings. And so we are doing those things to protect our hair from damage, to protect our hair from having to do put heat on it and certain things all the time. There are moments when we're wearing weaves and wigs and extensions Why? Because those things help me get out the door just that much more quicker. So that when I get to work, you're not talking about my nappy hair or not preventing me from a job opportunity because I'm not presenting in a certain way, but that now I can conform and wear a straight ponytail, or I can wear a long hair, or I can do my hair blonde, or I can do my hair what have you. The reality is I used to work as a waiter at Applebee's and all these other, companies. And when I was younger, I would wear blue and red, different things in my hair. And I was sent home many times because I was told that that was ghetto and it wasn't appropriate and all these different things. Every single thing that Black people do is judged and demeaned as ghetto, as morally, all these different things, until the moment that someone white starts doing it and selling it. Watching Black women twerk their big asses on TV is so vulgar until a white woman is doing twerking classes in Los Angeles. That's why this appropriation, what this appropriation is all about, is using our Black culture and our Black things for your benefit and entertainment without being invested in Black lives and Black community. That's what
That's the key.
That is a huge key. So even with like someone like, so say for instance, let's go Madonna and Vogue, and let's talk about Madonna and Vogue. Let's talk about Pose and the ballroom community. So you got Madonna, who shined a light. She's done so much work for the LGBT community and with HIV. She has used her platform. And at the same time, though, during that time of Vogue, it was very much a lot of appropriation that happened because everybody was crowning Madonna as a person who came up with Vogue, who did these things. And that opened up so many other different doors for her. Of course, for Jose Extravaganza, one of the people from the ballroom community, or a few, they got to experience going on tour with Madonna, or now being able to have a consistent income for a little bit of time or whatever, to experience the thrill for a moment. But Pose took the ballroom community and the Vogue and everything and took it, white creators and all this kind of stuff or whatever, but included Black and trans and queer people at every level of the situation. They put the proceeds to go back towards, nonprofits that were doing the work for our community. They hired people from that community to be extras and to be on things like that. And what that did, as you know, Cody, as an actor, when you're a Black person or a Black trans person, I have to build up so many hours in order to get my SAG card in order to become a professional actor. There's only so many dead Black prostitutes, trans prostitutes that I can play. There's only so many times I could add that up to a SAG card. So when we're in a show like Pose and they have 300 extras of LGBTQ, Black and brown queer folks who are adding up down those hours, now I'm seeing them on Tales of the City, and now I'm seeing them in backgrounds on all these other shows. And that's how you turn the tide, because you're investing in the very community that you took from, that you borrowed from.
This is an aha moment as well, because what the link that I really didn't understand was it's not that it's not okay for you to enjoy Black culture. It is not that it is not okay for you to even express things that have come from Black culture, but it is not okay for you to steal from Black culture and not pay anything back. And it doesn't even have to be by way of here's my money, but by way of what are you actually doing to support the Black community?
Well, as you loot
their culture.
Well, I think that's why Kim Kardashian is now, working to set Black people free from prison, because the reality is, the commentary's been coming closer, and I will give them some credit. And the reason why I'm giving I give Kim some credit. And the reason why I'm giving her some credit is, one, I always recognize a hustle. I always can recognize a business and a girl that's doing something. But what we're not recognizing is that family is constantly stealing from Black people. Constantly and in so much ways that there's a woman, Destiny Blue, who does this like rhinestoning on bedazzling of all these things. And like literally Chloe bought a big order from her and was tried to rebrand it, like literally buy it and rebrand it and mass produce it, literally stealing from a black woman whose business is her business to do that. Their aesthetic. And the thing is that that's why this conversation gets a little difficult, even in colorism within the black community, when you have light skin or biracial people saying that they're black. And the reality is, yes, they are part black, but their identity is biracial. Because what happens is we then have television shows, or we have mainstream spaces that then pick the light-skinned black folks out and check off a box that they've got black people involved, when that's not the black experience. That's a biracial experience. Mm-hmm. My experience, looking the way I do, walking out the house I do with this hair, is a black experience. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, it's funny when you mentioned the Kardashians. I saw this great meme. It could be completely irrelevant, but it was do you remember the Pepsi ad where the Black Lives Matters protesters are about to clash with police, and it's okay because Kendall Jenner has a Pepsi. And I remember seeing that ad a while ago and thinking, wow, this is amazing. Kendall Jenner with a Pepsi is going to save the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm seeing a lot of people right now calling on, well, where's Kendall Jenner using her platform right now? It's like, you know.
Wait. That's
where's
a serious
Pepsi?
Question. That's actually a serious question. Because I'm pretty sure she didn't do that Pepsi commercial for free. I'm pretty sure, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty sure there was this benefit to doing all that whole thing. So where is the benefit, girl? I know. That's the question. Where's the benefit? This might cost me some followers. This might, what have you. But girl, that's why I say, I'm so upset with Kanye right now. It's not even funny. But like, the thing is that Kim Kardashian is freeing black people from prison, right? Meanwhile, Kanye is supporting Trump. What the is going on? But at least I think what's happening is, I've seen a lot what's happening with Kim, and like I said, I'm not a huge fan of that family, but I will recognize what is to be recognized. I can always do that. And so I think it's getting to Kim, even when Jeffree Star, she was supporting Jeffree Star. And this is again, what we have to understand is, someone tweeted out, I'll never forgive the gay community for letting white gays lead the beauty industry or what have you. We're in a time right now where your Jeffree Stars and your Gigi Gorgeous and all these folks, they're making a living off of these things. While now Gigi Gorgeous, I love her. She's a friend. She's just posted something about Black Lives Matter. She's going to sell some art. She's doing some great stuff. But on the other hand, who's the other person I was talking about? Not Gigi. Jeffree Star was called out for using the N-word and talking about pouring acid on a black person and just all this very racist stuff. And so when Kim was supporting,
who's this person?
Jeffree Star, who's a makeup artist who has told some just racist, and tried to apologize for it. Then Kim got online and tried to basically defend Jeffree in it, and her fans and a lot of people got her right together and told her it's not your place to accept his apology on our behalf, and all these different things, to the point where Kim came back later. This is where I kind of give her some props, and she was like, you know what, you guys are right. It's not my place to do this and what have you. So regardless of what her sisters are doing or what everyone is doing, their whole aesthetic is built off of black women and then marketing themselves to black men and then selling themselves as the queens are at the top, and what black rappers, black athletes, they're all pining after that image, that bronzed light skin, because they want to believe they're light skinned black. They want to all go after that look and are stealing this from black women who actually live that and are oppressed for it, not gain anything for it. It doesn't make their lives more bronzed and pretty because they've got a tan. No, they're now more susceptible to police violence. So I think once Kim has realized that, she's now trying to do whatever she can do to be okay, I know our families, parts. Look me, I'm freeing black people from prison.
and just for everybody who's watching and on that, Angelica, it's interesting. I just want to draw attention to the fact that it's not about calling out specific people, let's say the Kardashians in this conversation, but it is about saying, and I think really what I'm hearing is when you look at what the predominant culture is and who the people are who make the culture. So you have people like what you're saying is like the Kardashians who have an extraordinary amount of cultural power. It's undeniable, who have an extraordinary amount of global power. And so when we were bringing up the Kendall Jenner situation, it's not to disparage any particular member of this family. We don't care. We're not talking about the Kardashians. This is not it's more to say, this is the clear example of what happens when the culture comes in and says, look at this brand that I have. I have Pepsi behind me, and I'm not going to share how much I'm making in my contract, and I'm not going to share any of this money with the Black community. And then I'm going to do this ad where myself as a white woman is going to save the Black masses from police brutality. And then I'm not going to say anything online about it. So it circles back to the beginning of the conversation, which is really about like, what is it that you're doing? And are you just virtue signaling? Is it that you are okay to say, well, I stand with the Black community when it benefits you, but you're not willing to put your feet on the ground. You're not willing to get out to the marches. You're not willing to actually donate to the community. You're not willing to do the work to unveil your unconscious bias and confront it. And I think,
are you more interested in protecting Black lives or protecting your property?
Right. I mean, this is a point that we spoke about, and I just want to share it because I think it might be valuable, which is, it was very difficult for me to realize in the work to become an anti-racist. The job that you have at hand is not to be entirely rid of racist thoughts. It's not possible. It's not going to happen. This was the huge aha moment for me. You are going to have racist thoughts. They are unavoidable. You have absorbed them from the culture. You absorbed them from a millennium of white control. You are going to be racist. But to get all Buddhist about it, it's about being able to sit behind the thought. It's like we were talking about. Prejudice is your thoughts and your feelings, and either conscious or unconscious. And discrimination is when you act on those thoughts. So, you know, to bring a sense of consciousness into it, and almost a Buddhist philosophy, is you need to be able to accept and understand and hear when those voices come up and act accordingly. So if you have a racist thought, it's about saying, who are you? Are you my dad? Are you my grandfather? Are you the current culture? Are you what is that thought? Because I am not this thought that I'm having about this particular person right now. And the brave work is to understand you have to start. The question is not if I'm a racist. The question is, how am I a racist? And really changing the paradigm so that because if you're sitting there thinking, if I'm a racist, then, or like, no, I have Black friends. It's again, you bring it back to the Kardashians and you say, well, they've all married Black people, so they can't be racist. No, that's not. It's how. What are the different gradations of it? What is the spectrum? And again, not to disparage the Kardashians. This is nothing against the Kardashians. This is the Kardashians as a vehicle for the cultural moment.
Well, you know, and it also, again, it goes back to, I really can't say enough to have your followers go to that good co on Instagram, and they have a post about how to be anti-racist, because when it talks about covert white supremacy, and there's just a laundry list of behaviors and actions that people don't normally consider. You know, here's another one is spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing of using your spiritual place to sort of like not to bypass the real conversation that's going on in God and peace and speaking Om and all those things. Look, listen, I'm a Buddhist and I'm all about the peace and all that, but I'm also able to not use my spiritual thing to ignore the situations that people of color are going through. Denying white privilege exists. There are a lot of people that do that. If that's just one only thing that you do, that's a huge part of the system. Denial. You're denying that this thing exists and helping it to, that's more than being complicit. That's actually an action of white supremacy, is the denial. So there's cultural appropriation, meritocracies, tokenism, racial profiling. There's so many things that you can do that you wouldn't consider overt racism, that you do have to ask yourself, am I being racist in this way?
Mm-hmm. And so, I guess to close, which is sad, I want to keep talking to you, but I'm very conscious of your time. I just want to ask, right now, the movement and the moment is really boiling over, and the voices are getting out. But this is not the first time. This has happened repetitively, at least in the past 2 decades for me. It's like every now and then it comes along. It's the same with the Parkland shooting, right? Everybody's getting behind it. We've got to stop the gun reform. We've got to get gun reform. We've got to blah, blah, blah. And then we move on, and then another video of a black man dying comes up, or a black woman dying comes up, and then, but something feels very...
Wait 1 second. Well, I just want to back up. So this is part of the change, and just helping to change our language, because those black people didn't die. They were murdered. It's that small change in language to call a thing a thing. These people were murdered.
So the murders of these black men and women, callous, cold-blooded murders. How is it that we go forward from here, Angelica? Because this moment feels like the fuse is really taken, that people are really listening. I mean, the fact that we had like 30,000 people in the streets during COVID-19, which I'm sure Donald Trump is, Mr. Denier is going to use it against us very soon. Well, it was the black community who spread COVID. I'm like, watch it, people, watch it. Watch the narrative shift all of a sudden from it doesn't exist to these are the people who did it. How do we keep this going? What are the specific demands right now? What are the immediate changes that we can make? Because a lot of people say, well, how do we fix systemic racism right now? When is the protesting going to stop so that we can get on with our lives? Because nothing can be done right now. What can be done right now? And what can be done moving forward?
So again, this answer is going to challenge everybody. And so the reality is, when we started this talk, at 3:00, I think over 10,000 people signed on, and I watched as our conversation went on, and it went down to now 3,000. I watched as when your fans started realizing what we were talking about and started to check out. And so, like you said, this is not new. This is not the first time, but this is the first time we've done this. This is the first time you maybe have used your platform in this way. Don't make it the last. Basically, because basically there are moments where we all know the best students, the best people who learn are teachers, and that you reinforce your learning by teaching others. So it means like not necessarily taking, me or another black person or using our bodies to bring into this. But now that you've opened up that conversation, how are you committed? Because we just had this conversation about how we each are going to be committed to doing something every day, to teaching ourselves on learning the things we learn, combating anti-blackness and racism. It's going to seem difficult, and we talk about failing forward. that we're going to need you to not be afraid of failing, not being afraid of messing up. Because as long as you get in there and fail forward and always be committed to doing better, then you're going to find yourself in good graces. But what I would say is that just as I brought up this graphic, and I was going over the graphic and really just reading it and talking about it, you could literally do that once a week. You could, I mean, it literally, I'm talking about every day doing something, whether it's watching a documentary, listening to podcasts, donating to Black, brown organizations, talking about fuck the police and abolish ICE, or whatever it is that is your message. Do something every day. Use your platform every day and show people that, by example, that I'm willing to teach myself. And so if you're willing to sign on, because the reality is you got people who are willing to watch you watch paint dry. You got people who are such followers of you that they will watch you literally do anything. So how about not watch them watch you grow? Watch them watch you challenge yourself. Watch them watch you bump up against these places of your own understanding and question yourself. Mm-hmm. That is how we move forward, is by using your own time, your own resources, your own platform to do the work. You don't have to look far. You can Google. There's so many different. There's books. There's a book called White Supremacy and Me, and she's on Instagram or something like that, and it's amazing. She uses it as a teaching tool. But it's things like that like Matt McGrory, I think his name is Matt McGrory, who was on Orange is the New Black, and also on he played a cop on Orange is the New Black. He also played on one of the students in How Do I Get Away with Murder. Following his Instagram for the past year or so has been very interesting. He's constantly sharing books that he's reading the new Jim Crow and educating himself on feminism and all these different things as a white man. And he then gets on live, or he might make a video, or he's at a protest. He's kind of what some people might think is overboard of it, but I don't think you can be too overboard with this. So
well, and I think right now is that moment where to understand how blind we've been, and that this is the moment really where if you care at all, that you need to get educated, and you need to educate yourself and not expect for the Black community to educate you about these problems, because they have been crying out for 400 years. And, you know, I will put up a book list of things that I've been reading. Certainly for anybody who's white, there's a great book called White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, which is just a really great place to begin. Ta-Nehisi Coates has written Between the World and Me, is a really phenomenal book. There are many others. There's an extraordinary documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, James Baldwin documentary. That is one that will rattle you to the bones and really challenge your perceptions of blackness in America.
But see, that's one of those things. That's one of those things where I'm saying this is an idea for you, Cody. Again, great film. Talk about it with your people. Meaning, like, whether it is a live viewing, you know, people do like watch parties or what have you. But something that you can comment on, or something that has stirred something in you, talk about it with your fan base. And so not just giving them the homework to say, yes, go watch this or go do this. But once you do, I'm going to make this time for us to talk about it, because I thought it's some interesting thoughts and I want to know what you think too. Like, these are the ways that you can embed yourself as a leader, because the reality is, it's not just because you have this big platform and just because of all these things, but it's reflecting to the everyday person that we all can have this kind of responsibility, and we can all take advantage of our platforms, because Zoom and COVID-19 is pretty much flattened the thing that most of us are sitting behind some camera that we can broadcast a message out to very easily to our following.
I will do that, and of course we will continue to chat offline and on. I will just say to all the fans who are watching who are tech savvy, you know, I see your videos and your editing skills, they're crazy. I don't understand it, but certainly please do share parts of this conversation that you find to be most impactful or most educational. I'll look out for them. I'll reshare them. I think it's important.
Well, and sometimes, Cody, I understand your social media is like very overwhelming. Like I know it's overwhelming, and with the fan edits
Well,
and
for
all these.
me.
Yes, for you. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. For
yeah.
you, it's very overwhelming. But like, because we're having this conversation together, you know, people are going to be editing and tagging or whatever. Cody's going to be on the lookout for it. So am I, because I appreciate this time, Cody. I appreciate you extending your platform, and I just want us to make the most out of it and share what parts are relative to people as much as possible.
Well, and I think I'll make a commitment here as well and just say before is that it has been difficult for me with social media purely because it can be a tricky world in terms of the engagement, and I see everything and I hear everything, but I like to kind of tune out, and this is something where I now understand, well, what could this platform be used for? And after talking with you, I understand much more that because there are certainly people who post, here are 450 different organizations from, kittens in Somalia to, you know what I mean? Like getting freshwater to insects in this area. And I'm like, okay, there's too much going on. And so this is something that I'm very committed to. I think that the Black Lives Matter message is an important one. I'm an Australian. I'm not an American citizen. I'm currently fighting to be one. And not being able to take place in voting is difficult for me, but within a certain period of time, I will be able to. But this is how I want to be able to use my platform.
I think also what will help you, Cody, too, is to try to, if you can, if whatever you do know about it or not, but you're from Australia. And Australia has its own history with indigenous people and with black and brown people. And so if the more and more you educate yourself on even the foundations from where you come from and the struggles of those people right there in that land, I think it will even more color your global understanding of anti-blackness. Because it's not just an American problem, it's happening all over the world.
Absolutely. And I will say, to those watching, if you are of age, please get out and vote this November. It is the single most important election that we've had. And I'll say that again, out of the message that will be sent to the world if Trump gets reelected is not, the message before was America has taken a wrong turn here and this might be a mistake, this is an anomaly. The message that will be sent to the world if Trump gets reelected is, we did not make a mistake, and this is how we feel, and these are the things that we support. And so we can't afford that. What we need right now is for you to get behind Joe Biden and to get behind the Democratic Party and to ensure that we can wipe this racist out. Remember, he is saying things like when the looting starts, the shooting starts, he is designating Antifa as a terrorist organization, which basically means he can target anybody. Antifa is not an organized body of specific people. It's an anti-fascist group.
But I also want to encourage folks around this voting too, because I've been really mulling back and forth about a lot of stuff because it's very challenging conversation for everyone when we are forced into a two-party system that is not the best system. We are oftentimes the Democratic National Party. They leave us with not the best of choices to choose from when we're going through all this. But I want to encourage us to tackle this problem as strategically as possible, meaning it's really hard to rebuild everything at once. So if we can work on dismantling piece by piece by piece and breaking these things down into digestible chunks, meaning, so first things first, getting Trump out of office. First things first, getting him out of office and what have you. Second thing, once I guess Joe Biden is in or we have this situation, now if you really about that life, let's not stop then, because I still got questions. I still got questions why we're able to have a presidential election for one of the most important jobs in the country that probably requires a background check. I remember working at like waiting tables and having a background check and having something pop up and been like, ma'am, you can't move forward in this job process until you kind of clear up this thing on your that came up in your background check. It is amazing to me that we don't have a system that wants to be so thorough about making sure where all systems go. Everything is clear. But the fact that so many of us still have questions about various things, it makes the people not trust you or trust the system. So what we need to do, the system is broken. They lie and they steal. I watched it here in Atlanta, Georgia. I watched Brian Kemp steal the election from Stacey Abrams. I watched it. I saw very specifically how it happened. They delivered voting machines to black places without the plugs to plug them in. So, I mean, and that amongst all the other things. So to tell somebody just to vote, sometimes it's hard to just take when we understand that they're stealing elections. There's there's all these things going on. So my vote might not even make it there is the reality. We can't just tell people, oh, your vote's going to count when there are real efforts to not make it count. But what I say on the other side of that is make sure you and your spirit know that you've done everything you can do. So I did cast my vote and I got in the streets and I did this thing. Now is the time not to, we have to do everything we can. That does include voting. But know that once we get Donald Trump out the office, I still want the America that we've all dreamt about, that's built on better morals and ideals, that doesn't let rapists into the White House, that doesn't that doesn't ignore people's taxes, that doesn't value the rich, that doesn't do all of these things. But the world is on such a fire right now that we all have to come together right now. We have to come together to combat this shared enemy of white supremacy and Donald Trump, and then realize that the coast is not clear once the election's over. Once we get Donald Trump out and we get Joe Biden in, we have not reached the promised land. We've got so much more work to still do.
Angelica, I love you.
I love you too.
I'm so grateful for you, and I respect the work that you're doing. I think that it's profound and it's important. I would direct everybody to Angelica's Instagram. Be looking out here. I'll be posting things that we've been talking about. There'll be clips of this video, etc. Please share it with your friends. If there's anything that you need to ask or whatnot, share it, ask, get educated. I'll share a book list, and I'm sure that we'll be talking again. I'm so grateful for you to be doing this with me, Angelica, and I can't wait to see you and work with you again.
I can't wait to get back on set with you, Cody.
Oh, it's going to be fun. But in the meantime, there's work to be done.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Love you.
Do the work.
Bye, everybody. Oh.
So, I know that video was a long video, but it was an important one. And again, I think a lot of people need to hear that, and obviously there's more than just that. But like, I feel like people just don't get the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and they don't get the whole thing. And it's like, people will be like, oh, but all lives matter. It's like, yeah, all lives should matter and whatever, but like, if all lives matter, why are some people still getting mistreated? And then sometimes people be like, oh, black people are treated better than they were a few years ago, but it's like, they're still getting mistreated though. Like, sure, it's a lot better now, but they're still being mistreated. They're still being, like, murdered on the streets just for being black. And it's also, like, looking at how the LGBT community is being treated, it's very similar too. Like, people who are gay, trans, whatever, they're getting mistreated and killed on the streets, and just for being who they are. Just for being something that they can't control. You can't control skin color, you can't control your sexuality, you can't control your gender. So then when people look at someone who is a different race or a different gender or a different sexuality, or who has whatever, then, like, it's just, I don't know. Someone can somehow look at someone who's just a little bit different, and then they're like, "Oh, you're disgusting" or something. It's like, seriously, like, they can't control their gender, skin color, or sexuality. So it's just, all lives can't matter until this is fixed. If all lives mattered, this shit wouldn't be happening. Because clearly people still view other races and other genders and other sexualities as something that's icky or gross or whatever. To them, those people don't matter. And that's just, it needs to be fixed. And all lives should matter, but we can't say that until everyone is safe and not being mistreated for something that they can't control. And then also people just be like, "Oh, what about when white people get killed?" And it's still just like, it's not really completely the same still. Like, if you, like, I could tell someone to take a history class or something, but even history classes, some history classes are just like, they don't show the truly what happened, or it doesn't talk about certain things. And it's just like, this is why we need to actually look into things ourselves instead of just watching the news or going to a history class. You need to actually research this stuff yourself. And that's why I really liked this video that I had here, is because it's like, hey, here's some shit that's been happening. Here's, like, they talked about how the whole police thing was created after black people were able to get out of the slavery thing. And so the whole police thing was like, oh, we have to have this here so then they don't get revenge one day or whatever. And it's just like, what the fuck? I wonder why people would want to get revenge for you mistreating them and killing them, and yet just treating them like they're animals. Like, I wonder why someone would want revenge on you for that reason. Because you treated them like shit and you killed them. And it's just like, what the heck? And that's also like a whole thing where history classes don't show you how it truly happened, or it doesn't tell you whatever other stuff. And in history classes, they don't explain, or they don't tell the true thing of how Thanksgiving is the whole thing. So they're just like, oh, everyone had a big meal and everything was great and now we have Thanksgiving. It's like, no, people stole some other people's land and used them as slaves, and oftentimes also raped them too. So it's like, why don't you tell that side of the story? Like, history is not all, oh, people came over here and, kind of just started living here. No. People came over to America and just, started living here. No, they slaughtered the people that were native to America. They didn't just come over here and, just chill here. No, they took the Native Americans as slaves and killed them and raped them and, all of that terrible shit. It's like, why do history classes have to dumb shit down? And, like, even if the history class was for, like, some kids who were, like, 5 or something, I don't think you should really completely hide that stuff, that shit. Like, they should know how shitty their whole thing is. They should know how shitty the story was. You gotta learn how history, like, was. You have to, whatever. You can't just be like, oh, it was, like, a nice happy ending for this story. Like, no. No, it wasn't. It clearly was not. Like, seriously. I was just like, I don't know. Why can't people, like, look into shit themselves? Why do they have to be like, oh, but all lives matter? Like, sure, all lives should matter, but that's not. Please look into this. And also, people saying all lives matter. It's like, saying Black Lives Matter never. It's just saying Black Lives Matter. Like, it never said only Black Lives Matter. It never said, oh, Black Lives Matter, fuck all the white people. It's like, it's just saying, hey, black people are getting mistreated, and we want to say, hey, please notice that we're getting mistreated. Like, oh my gosh. And then at one point there is the White Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter hashtag trending on, like, Twitter or whatever, and it's like, what the fuck? All these fucking white supremacists trying to say, oh, white lives matter. It's like, bitch, you weren't oppressed for your fucking skin color. Shut the fuck up. And then they're saying, like, oh, blue lives matter. It's like, seriously? Really? Like, people cannot choose their skin color, but people can choose to be a cop. So, like, fuck cops. They can just fuck right off. I don't want anything to do with stupid racist cops. So, it's like, there are no blue lives, actually. There's no fucking Smurfs here. Spoiler alert. Smurfs are fake. So, no, there are no blue lives. Fuck cops. Smurfs aren't real. So shut the fuck up about Blue Lives Matter. It's just dumb as fuck. Cops aren't being killed for being blue. Like, what the fuck? And white people never really had their freaking rights taken away. I mean, I guess if you were a woman and then back when they couldn't vote, then that was whatever. But that was just because they're a woman, not because they're white. So, you can't even really count that, because that's, like, because men were shitty and thought women couldn't do anything. And now women can vote, so it's kind of like, I don't know. Still, women are trying to fight for their rights because some idiots are like, oh, abortion is bad, or you can't take birth control. It's like, shut the fuck up. If someone wants to have an abortion or birth control, it's like, it's not your body, and it doesn't have an effect on your life, really. So, if someone needs to do whatever, then they should be able to do that. Like, I don't, like, no one should really tell someone to not take whatever shit. So, I don't know. But, anyways, I'm kind of going off on the whole idea of what this was supposed to be about. I kind of started talking about women's rights. I kind of went off topic a little bit. Just a little bit. But, yeah, it's still, like, about rights, but it kind of went off from black people to women's rights. Rip. I'm sorry. But, anyways, the whole thing still, like, has a point. Like, people some people be shitty, and then it's like, hey, then these people have to fight for their rights. And people be like, I don't like how it's a riot, stop breaking shit. And it's like, the protesters are not the ones that are breaking shit. It's the fucking cops and the white supremacists who are taking advantage of the situation and blaming it on the people who are doing the peaceful protest. If you actually looked into shit, like, the news isn't gonna show the shit that's actually going on. This is why you need to look into shit yourself, because the news is not gonna show the real shit. Just like how people were talking about, oh, the news isn't going to talk about how Donald Trump is a fucking pedo. This is why you need to look into shit yourself, because the news is not gonna talk about it. You can't just turn on the TV and go to the news channel and whatever. You need to actually go look into this shit. Watch videos from people who are at the protests. And there's, I think they talked about this in the video, but there's whatever car in the street and it said free car. And then it was like they were trying to bait the peaceful protesters into smashing the car so then they could go, like, arrest them or whatever. And then also people being like, oh, why are you, like, having whatever links to bail the looters and people who are destroying shit out of jail. It's like, those aren't the looters. Those aren't the people that are destroying shit. Those are the people that didn't do anything and are in jail for being an innocent person. Also, I saw a video of some black guy, like, got attacked by cops just for saying one little thing. It was like a bunch of people lined up on, like, the side of the road, kind of like on the curb, and then there was a bunch of cops lined up on, like, down the road. And then this black guy kind of stepped forward just a little bit, and he said something and he stepped back, and then all of a sudden the cops go grab him, and then they, like, pushed him to the ground and whatever. And then people were like, what the fuck? Like, people in the video were just, like, yelling, what the fuck? What are you doing? What the fuck? And it's like, all he did was step forward just a little bit, say something, and then step back, and then the cops went and grabbed him. It's like, he didn't take out any weapon or anything. He didn't run at them. He just stepped forward, said something, and stepped back. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure if a white dude did that, they wouldn't attack him, but since he was black, I'm pretty sure. Then they were like, oh yeah, let's grab him. It's like, seriously? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my gosh. And then also, when some, like, white kid could, like, rape someone and only get, like, a few months in jail, and then some black person could, like, do the tiniest little thing and then go to jail for, like, 50 years, and it's like, what the fuck? And, yeah, the whole thing where the police were created just to, like, control black people and, like, protect white people. I am not surprised that the police would be created for that, because fucking racism. They want to control black people, and it's been like that for a very long time, and they're still doing it, even though it's been like, what, 400 years or something like that. Like, seriously, I'm so done. I'm just really done. But yeah, it's just like, I can't. I really can't. I'm so tired of this. But yeah, and again, I'll put the links to the Instagram TV video so you can go watch that video yourself. Go give that video views and comment on it and share it yourself. And I'll put the links to both of their Instagrams in the description below so you can follow them. And yeah, so yeah, I don't know, I don't know. But yeah, also I think they talked about how you can watch movies and documentaries and stuff about how black people are treated and stuff, so yeah, if you want to watch those, then you can. I think there's a few movies on like Netflix, and then like 2 or 3 movies on Hulu, and then you can like rent some movies or whatever. So if you have Netflix or Hulu or both or whatever, you can go watch whatever movies. I'm sure people, like, there's a bunch of people posting whatever stuff where you can go watch movies, listen to podcasts, watch or read books and whatever. So yeah, if you really want to know more about how black people are mistreated and how black people are being killed and stuff, then yeah, you should go watch and read and whatever. And then also, there's like some stuff where I have found, or there's some stuff that I've seen where people are talking about LGBT history and how people would like kill trans people and gay kids and stuff, or gay people in general. And like a lot of times it's like black trans women get killed, so it's like really terrible. It's just so terrible. Like, I can't. I hate people. But yeah, I really just, I don't know. If you can go to protest, be safe, or if you are going to protest, be safe. Wear whatever masks and stuff. You can wear goggles to protect your eyes. Keep the whatever gas from getting to your eyes and touching your skin and stuff, and try not to breathe that stuff in, and defend the black people that are at protests and stuff. Don't loot, don't break shit, because then they're just gonna blame it on protesters. And if you can't go to protest, you can try to donate. If you can't donate, you can share the links around and try to say stuff yourself and use your voice and your platform. So, yeah. Anyways, I think that'll be it for this. This is like a really long video, so I'm really sorry, but it's really important. But yeah, so anyways, I guess bye then.